Good afternoon. Please be seated. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this opening convocation of the 2021-2022 academic year. Poet Ross Gay, who received his BA from Lafayette College, reminds us in A Small Needful Fact that amid the many critical issues of our time, we must also find ways to care for ourselves, each other, and the world. A small needful fact is that Eric Garner worked for some time in the Parks and Rec Horticultural Department, which means, perhaps, that with his very large hands, perhaps, in all likelihood, he put gently into the earth some plants which, most likely, some of them, in all likelihood, continue to grow, continue to do what such plants do, like house and feed small and necessary creatures, like being pleasant to touch and smell, like converting sunlight into food, like making it easier for us all to breathe. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It is wonderful to see you all here and to welcome you or welcome you back to Carleton. Whether you're a student who set foot on this campus for the first time a few days ago or a faculty or staff member who's been here for decades, your presence is an integral part of what makes Carleton special. I have to say it's a special pleasure to be able to welcome so many students here today. I've had some opportunities over the course of the summer to talk with faculty and staff, but obviously, with fewer students around during the summer, I have been so looking forward to your presence and to seeing you come back so that we can get to know one another. Over the course of the summer, I have had a chance to meet a number of you who are peer leaders or who were working for admissions. Those got to be regulars on my walk coming into the office. Saw lots of you in the rec center and in the ARB. I have seen a number of you downtown and around the neighborhood, and I have noticed that traffic in the neighborhood is picking up now that everybody is back. But I'm really looking forward to more organized ways of getting to connect with lots of different student groups and organizations, and also getting to know and connect with you personally. And so I just want you to recognize that though it's been a long time since we have gathered together and a long time since we have been together as a community, one of the things that makes this moment really extraordinary for all of us is the fact that you're here with us today. So thank you all for taking time to be here. In talking with many first-year students over the last few days, I've been struck by how many of them have commented on the beauty of the campus. While national and international in its scope, Carleton is a college that is intimately connected to its local environment, and its crown jewel, Cowling Arboretum, has long been a cherished resource for study and recreation and contemplation. It's fitting, therefore, that we acknowledge the history of the land that we enjoy. We stand on the homelands of the Wapekute and Metawakitan bands of the Dakota Nation. We honor with gratitude the people who have stewarded the land through the generations and their ongoing contributions to this region. We acknowledge the ongoing injustices that we have committed against the Dakota Nation, and we wish to interrupt this legacy, beginning with acts of healing and honest storytelling about this place. Carleton has developed the preceding land acknowledgement statement through participation in a joint task force with the city of Northfield and with St. Olaf College, and we share it on public occasions like this to help foreground our commitment to ongoing study and dialogue about the experience of Indigenous peoples in this area. I'm pleased to note that in service of its stated goal of honest storytelling, the college has just opened an important new exhibit, Why Treaties Matter, at the White Center, an exhibit that was created in partnership between the Minnesota Humanities Center, the Minnesotan Indian Affairs Council, and the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian. I encourage all of you to visit this powerful exhibit and to attend this Friday's opening keynote lecture by author, artist, and teacher Gwen Westerman. This exhibit is one step on a longer journey for our community to better understand and reckon with the history of Indigenous peoples in Minnesota and beyond. Today's convocation is part of a long-standing tradition that's one of Carleton's most distinctive features. Many colleges open the year with a ceremonial convocation that provides an opportunity for students, faculty, and staff to gather, and reflect on their shared commitment to academic inquiry and community. But at Carleton, Convocation is a weekly occurrence. We've set aside time in the college calendar to create opportunities for the entire community to gather and hear a talk or program that provides a shared basis for intellectual exchange and ongoing dialogue. I can tell you that this program is the envy of many of our liberal arts college peers. During my time as provost at Middlebury College, faculty often talked about wanting to create a convocation series like Carleton's, but they were deterred by the challenges of allocating time during the common class schedule. Carleton's continuing commitment to creating this shared space for discussion is fundamental to its identity as a place that values intellectual inquiry and robust debate, which are fundamental to any academic community. The word convocation stems from the Latin word convocare, meaning to call together, which combines the prefix com, meaning together, and vocare, meaning to call or summons. Thus, the word embodies not only the idea of togetherness, but the importance of voice. Most Carleton convocations center on the single voice of a guest speaker. Today's opening convocation will feature many voices, as we will shortly share a variety of comments offered by individual faculty, staff, and students in response to our request for testimonials to the great work done by so many members of the community over the past year. Today's coming together feels especially momentous. As always, for new students, it's an introduction to the Carleton community. This year, for many returning students and colleagues who've not seen each other in a long time, it's a reintroduction to the Carleton community. For me, as a new president, it's a rare moment of opportunity where I can enter and engage not as a unique stranger, but as part of a whole group of people who are in many ways new to each other and reimagining what it means to be a community. In my conversations with students, faculty, and staff about what brought you here, many of you have invoked the strong sense of community that you either experienced or heard about here at Carleton. I'd like to think for a few minutes about what a sense of community means and how it is created and sustained. At its most basic level, it might be described as a feeling of camaraderie or acceptance or belonging. This sense of commonality or affinity leads, at its best, to trust and an assumption of goodwill that enables community members to navigate disagreement and debate as they learn and grow together. As valuable as this sense of affinity may be, it's easy to confuse community with conformity and to assume that the price of belonging to a community is that one must adapt oneself to its dominant culture. It's important to remind ourselves that community does not have to mean shared identities or even shared opinions. It's constituted through shared purpose, mission, and goals. In fact, an equitable and committed community welcomes difference. It does not ask you to unravel the unique strands that make you who you are. It invites you to weave yourself into its fabric. Such a community is like an ecosystem, a network of overlapping systems that connect with each other in multiple ways. Making these kinds of connections with each other is the shared project and responsibility of every member of this community. Within the academic program, different departments, programs, disciplines, or reading groups connect with each other to find areas of shared interest, and each node of interdisciplinarity adds energy to the whole system. Within the social and political culture of the college, building connections among different voices, identities, and groups is an ongoing and sometimes difficult task. Carleton has long prided itself on creating an environment of belonging and acceptance, and many students, faculty, and staff have felt and valued this aspect of Carleton. But other members of the community have experienced an environment of exclusion or alienation here, and we've come to recognize the urgent need for us to confront this inequity in experience. As we work towards becoming a more inclusive and equitable community, we've come to recognize that achieving this goal requires more than goodwill. It requires resources, commitment, and structure. The Inclusivity, Diversity, and Equity Steering Committee that was appointed last year is finalizing a set of recommended goals and objectives for Carleton's 10-year diversity plan. With the help of community input, these will be developed into specific strategies to create a blueprint for the kind of structural change that will be needed to combat inequities and systemic racism within our institution and our culture. It's important to recognize that the equitable and committed community we seek is not an option or an enhancement to the Carleton experience. It is absolutely fundamental to our ability to deliver a quality liberal arts education. As we've seen even more clearly during the pandemic, learning is a collective process. It takes place through dialogue and exchange among people with different backgrounds, identities, abilities, and interests who share a desire for growth and change. real learning requires an environment of trust and belonging, where everyone feels valued and can show up as their full selves. The challenge is that we need to work as a community to become that community for everyone. We are redesigning the fabric of the community even as we continue to weave its different strands together. We have already discovered that this work is not easy. In the administration, we recognize that we will need to redouble our efforts to listen, to hear, to communicate, to act, and to hold ourselves accountable. But this continual reweaving of the community is the purpose which calls us together, today and every day. Our shared responsibility is what defines us as a community. You may have noticed that in my remarks today, I've often used the plural first-person pronoun we in an attempt to articulate a collective voice for the institution and community, one that includes the harmonics and overtones of many different voices. As a scholar of 19th century British literature, I can't help associating this gesture with the collective narrative voice of the classic Victorian novel, as written by Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, or George Eliot. George Eliot, in particular, a female author who wrote under a male pseudonym, was noted for her insightful generalizations about human nature. In such passages, she often uses we to refer simultaneously to a novel's characters, herself, and the reader of the novel. In this way, she brings her audience of readers into a community that she creates through the act of addressing us. Simply referring to ourselves collectively is an act of fellowship and hope, a commitment to our relationship to each other. In much the same way, Carleton's Convocation tradition itself represents an aspiration towards a community that encompasses many voices. The decision to gather regularly, to hear talks from outside speakers, and discuss them among ourselves is evidence of a deep commitment to shared intellectual experience and collective learning. As we work together and grapple with difficult issues together in the months and years to come, I hope that we will find many ways to reaffirm that commitment. We've all chosen to come here because we believe in the value of the extraordinary liberal arts education that Carleton offers. Each and every one of you plays a role in defining the kind of community we will be, and hence the kind of education that community makes possible. Thank you for being here and for being part of that project. I could not be more delighted that we are on this journey together. Thank you. Thank you. In a few minutes, we'll have the opportunity to hear some reflections from members of the community. But first, we'd like to take a moment to honor student academic achievements. I'd like to invite Professor of Chemistry and Dean of the College, Gretchen Hofmeister, to come forward to recognize students who've been named to the Dean's List. Dean Hofmeister.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the start of the new academic year, and welcome to this celebration of the new beginnings that lie ahead. By tradition, Carleton recognizes and honors student accomplishments and awards at the Spring Honors Convocation. The one exception to that practice is the Dean's List, which is always recognized at the opening convocation of the new year. This exception is very appropriate. Normally, the grade point average is computed on a cumulative basis over a student's entire Carleton experience. But the Dean's List recognizes those students whose annual grade point average puts them within the top 10% of their class for that year. It's based on the GPA earned in academic work over the 3 terms of the academic year for which it is awarded. It offers recognition for superior academic achievement in the year just completed and begins each year anew with a clean slate, new opportunities, and a new beginning. So I'm going to ask the students whose academic achievements earned them a place on the Dean's List for the 2021 academic year. They're named in your program, but I'd like you to stand and allow us to recognize you with our applause. Enthusiastic congratulations.
we've chosen to take some time today to reflect as a community on some of the things that went on over the course of the last year and all of the efforts that went into making last year a success, even through some very difficult times for the Carleton community. As someone who's new to the community, I didn't have the opportunity to be part of that effort, part of that achievement, part of that process. But I will say that in the time that I've been here and in talking with many students, faculty, and staff about the last 18 months, I have heard so many stories about the extraordinary efforts that members of this community made to support each other. I've heard from students about the heroic lengths that faculty went to deliver the best possible courses under very difficult circumstances. And I've heard from so many faculty and students about the way in which the staff stepped up to do extraordinary work under circumstances that none of us could have imagined. Students also did a wonderful job of supporting each other and being there for each other in spite of the emotional burdens that everyone was feeling themselves. And we felt that it was appropriate to take a moment to reflect on that as we launch into the year ahead. This is not meant to be backward-looking in a sense, but forward-looking, because the ways in which we treat each other and the ways in which we work as a community are fundamental to the kind of education that we're going to be able to provide and to participate in the coming year. And I could not be more proud to be joining a community that stepped up in such an amazing way to support each other last year. What we did is, as many of you know, is that we invited the community a week or so ago, to submit reflections online, which will be posted on a website after this ceremony is over in the next day or two. And we've selected a few examples that we've asked members of the community to read so that we can all enjoy them. And so we've picked a few staff, faculty, and students to read a couple of excerpts each from some of the submissions we received. As you can imagine, it was a difficult process to pick from among many terrific submissions, and so we tried to pick ones that we thought really characterized something special, that gave a real sense of what a particular action or person or office had meant to the person who wrote. It's impossible to be fully representative of what everyone has done, and so I hope that every staff, faculty, and student, staff member, faculty member, and student, who hears a commendation of one of your peers will feel commended yourself and recognize that this is an example of a representation of what the entire community was able to do over the course of a very difficult year. So I'm happy to welcome to the podium several colleagues: Peter Magera in Development, Jane Rizzo from the Budget Office, Raba Tefra in Admissions, Ross Elfline from Art and Art History, Serena Zabin in History, Javon Robinson from the Class of 22, and Jill Yanai from the Class of 22. Thank you for helping us out today.
Thank you, President Byerly. I wholeheartedly nominate Phoebe Wilmot and Kim Little. One can't help but notice the hard work Phoebe and Kim have put into operating the Schultze Cafe during this time. They are always helpful, smiling, patient, and forever offering kind words to students, faculty, and staff. When dining services was short on staff, these two would pitch in to help, one staying to staff Schultze Cafe alone and the other at the other location. The kindness of these two should not be overlooked. The contact investigation and contact tracing team put in countless hours beyond their normal work throughout this past year, including hours in the evenings and on weekends, and getting calls to their personal phones at any time of day. Their work went unnoticed by a lot of campus, but it is really what kept us running. I would like to personally thank the Registrar's Office. I'm going to start an Anne May fan club. She She, along with everyone else in that office, make my job so much easier on any given day, but during the pandemic, they went above and beyond. They problem-solved everything we threw at them. Thank you. I invite the entire Carleton community to recognize the Herculean efforts of Patty Sabrowski, Manager of Custodial Services, and her entire custodial staff during the most challenging days of the pandemic. I think we owe Patty and her staff a huge thank you for effectively managing everything from moving furniture in and out of practically every space on campus, to overseeing the distribution of sanitizing supplies, to extra cleaning efforts that kept us all safe, all while doing their regular jobs at the same time.
Sorry about that. COVID-19 made life difficult for everyone. It was difficult for the students. Yes, I know it must have been even more difficult for the professors. I can never forget the spring of 2020 when my physics prof was answering my questions during office hours while comforting his toddler in his lap, or when my Orgo 2 prof answered my Slack message at 10 p.m. I will not forget how, during the past academic year, my professors took on extra lab sections in order to accommodate social distancing and the many students who needed to take labs. I could see the fatigue in their eyes by the end of the Wednesday PM lab section at 7 o'clock, yet they still answered students' questions with kindness and patience. I still remember when my biochem prof, running tirelessly up and down the stairs between two sparsely populated lab rooms to answer questions while coming in on Sundays to finish up experiments for us. While we rested during spring break of 2020, the professors worked tirelessly, harder than they've had to as a first-year professor, in order to make sure that when we came back, we could still learn despite the difficult circumstances. The teaching situations were not always ideal, and I have heard many of us complain, but I also know that many of us understand things were the best they could have been. Thank you to all the professors for your hard work to give us the best experience possible, and to your family for their understanding and support. I was sick with COVID-19, and Constance Walker came by my quarantine house with a bag of baked cookies for me and left it at the doorstep. I appreciated it more than anything. I'd like to thank Josh Davis for creating the best virtual classroom, one in which participating did not always have to be providing the answer. Thank you for exploring and learning with us, and for encouraging us to consider the why behind the formulas and computations. Thank you for reading faces and straying from lecture plans when you knew we were lost. Thank you for valuing the process of problem solving and showing that the journey is often worth more than the destination. Thank you for making us laugh and for offering an escape from a world that seemed very bitter. Thank you for holding me to high expectations when I was too afraid to. You will never truly understand how much I loved your class and how grateful I am that you believe in me, even when I was, sorry, I misspoke. How grateful I am that you believed that I was more capable. Thank you.
Students and staff found creative new ways to work with the community in pandemic times, whether that was championing an online version of the Lighten Up garage sale, tutoring elementary students over Zoom, or hosting online webinars built on the center's core values. The commitment that the TRIP CE has to Carleton students and our surrounding community is truly amazing, and I want to congratulate them for that work, despite the challenges that the pandemic continues to bring to us. Members of the Division of Student Life spent countless hours assisting students, faculty, and staff navigate the many complexities of COVID, specifically for students, from housing needs to food to health care, to being there for a student when they needed someone to just listen. A special nod to the Dean of Students' Office, to SHAC, to Residential Life, and to the Office of Health Promotion. Without their support, dedication, perseverance, and overall ability to remain positive, at least on the outside, we would not be where we are today. Thank you. You are appreciated. The incredible work, dedication, and ingenuity of both chemistry laboratory manager Lan Hao Yang and chemistry technician Julie Karg allowed us to maintain nearly complete in-person chemistry lab offerings to the usual number of students throughout the 2020-21 academic year. This required creativity in terms of lab setup, new safety protocols, attention to detail to ensure the appropriate materials were used in the right spaces at all times, and significant extra work to make it all happen. The chance to work together in person offered a bright spot during the week where faculty and students were able to work together in person, and many of our classes were so much the better for this. Janet Scannell, Michael Decker, Vibke Kuhn, and the whole ITS staff accomplished amazing feats of technological transformation with professionalism, sang-froid, and a good humor that kept us able to connect with students and each other, and confident that we had colleagues always ready to help us solve any problem. Thank you.
I am especially grateful to the physics department, in particular Marty Baylor and Barry Costanzi, for being so supportive. Learning physics online, and I assume teaching physics online, is very difficult, and these professors did a great job and put in so much time and effort into helping me learn in this format. They were always willing to put in extra time and schedule a Zoom meeting to answer my questions about physics and even talk about my life. When I felt like I couldn't learn physics online and I felt out of place as one of the few women in a male-dominated class, they encouraged me and validated my experience. I'm not sure I would have majored in physics if it wasn't for their continued support, and I am thankful to have such a competent and caring group of professors in my major. While I think Kylie Koch should be recognized for being a great professor, what I really want to recognize her for is for being an even better person. Carleton is chock full of professors who care about you as a student and want you to succeed outside of the classroom, but this is especially true for Kylie. I can honestly say that Kylie is one of the kindest, most caring, and most compassionate professors that I have had at Carleton and in my entire academic career, really. Kylie would frequently start out Zoom classes with check-in polls to ask how we were doing. She made it clear that her care for us extended beyond our performance in our class, and she urged students on multiple occasions to stop by her office hours if they ever needed someone to talk to. She always took time to address the stressors that were plaguing the students at the time, which ensured us all that she was keenly aware of circumstances we were all facing outside of the classroom. It was so valuable to know that a professor cared so deeply for the well-being of her students. Thank you.
Kevin Chapman's service to the college during COVID went well beyond anything that was expected or asked to do by colleagues or by the administration. He has been gracious and quiet, but I think he should be recognized. Kevin was on campus every day during the pandemic, handling IT emergencies, physically moving equipment around, talking with users and watching what was happening on campus, and reporting to those off campus where needed, giving everyone a sense of connection when the isolation was at its worst. He did the work of people who were off campus where needed and acted as a general technology nexus, bringing in specialists as needed. For example, when networking or other infrastructure issues arose on campus. You could say he was kind of a heartbeat for technology, for the campus at a time when technology was all that was connecting us. I would like to highlight the fantastic work done by the staff who planned and led SARAE, which is the Staff Anti-Racism Awareness and Education, discussions that happened this past fall. While the work of anti-racism is nowhere near done, SARAE stepped up at a time when many of us felt an especially urgent need to learn about and discuss what we could implement and how we can implement anti-racist practices during our work at Carleton. I'm so grateful for their leadership. To all Carleton students whose vigilance, care, and discipline kept our college open, kept their peers from suffering a serious illness, and provided an excellent example for the extraordinary things which Carls are capable of. Matt, Amanda, and Aaron, and Beth, have all been amazing volunteers for multiple COVID response projects, including contact tracing, COVID testing clinics, vaccine clinics, and more. They were always willing to take on additional work and support the college in any way possible. Thank you, Summer Liberal Arts Institute team.
My heroine for the last academic year, 2020-2021, is Music Director Administrative Assistant Diane Fredrickson. Most of the faculty were pandemic safe, teaching as best we could from home. Diane was often to be found in the whites, helping both students and staff with the many problems that kept occurring. Apart from needing to assign applied music students one room for lessons and a different room for practice, both of which needed to honor Carleton's proximity regulations, she was often in her office, helping confused students find rooms, deal with non-functional room keys, and helping students with Zoom connectivity issues. I would like to thank members of Gould Library Loan Services, Reference and Instruction, Special Collections, and Technical Services departments for all the support they gave our students and faculty during the pandemic. Librarians and other library staff have been extremely helpful in helping us have access to library materials with excellent turnaround times and under the most considerate health practices. I would like to recognize the grounds, custodians, and maintenance departments for giving 100% commitment to the campus. These members were on campus every day during the last 18 months with no option to work from home. They have been short-staffed and still worked hard to make sure the campus ran as close to normal as possible. I appreciate and respect every one of them and look forward to working with them this coming school year. Thank you. I'm grateful to Melissa Eblin-Zayas for the amazing work she did in the LTC, supporting faculty as they figured out how to do online learning. She provided resources, smart and thoughtful advice, and general handholding. I know that she was just one of a whole team of ATs, librarians, and other support staff working on that transition, but she was the person I always turned to first, and she always had help to offer. Like the Atlas of mythology who bore the world on his shoulders, Liz Cody, head of the International Students Office, balanced the world of our international student community. She balanced that world on her shoulders and kept it spinning. From the very outbreak of the pandemic, she was in the front lines of supporting our international students, whether helping them think through the critical decision whether to remain on campus or leave, to working with them on all matters visa at one of the most complex and difficult times in the history of study abroad and foreign travel, to working amidst many challenges to support individual students and build and maintain community, to welcoming them to this, in person, this fall term.
Deep thanks go to the staff at SHAC and other student support offices who dealt with huge, albeit reasonable, needs from students for healthcare and emotional support. I so appreciate the work that ITS put into supporting our students, staff, and faculty last year. All of us had to change how we work, and the folks in ITS not only had to change how they do their work, they had to help everyone else on top of that. They did an amazing job, and I always felt like I could get the help that I needed. Jesse Cashman and the Return to Campus Operations team have done amazing work throughout the pandemic. Last year, they coordinated furniture and classroom setups to assure physical distancing. They deployed hundreds, if not thousands, of signs around campus, managed COVID supply inventory, facilitated outdoor classroom tents and equipment, helped staff testing clinics, and served as a key point of coordination for faculty, staff, and various other COVID-facing teams on campus. They took the work seriously and found joy in working together in community and for the benefit of our campus community. Janet Lelm and Noel Ponder were the dynamic duo for social distancing in the lead up to 2020-2021. They worked tirelessly with 2 yardsticks and masking tape in hand to ready our classrooms and office spaces and consult on all matter of safe building practices. Like magicians, they moved furniture where it was needed and made it disappear when it was needed.
Thank you to all of our readers, and thanks to all of you who submitted testimonials about the work of your colleagues. It might seem strange in a space this elevated to be talking about things like testing clinics and hand sanitizers and grounds work, but I think that hearing the sort of detail and texture of everything that went on last year and the work that everyone did does give a sense of the effort involved and the tremendous commitment represented. And so now that we have thanked several representative individuals, I'd like to ask for a round of applause for the entire Carleton community. Thank you. I now invite Chaplain Carolyn Fierce-Slocum to present the valedictory.
Historian Howard Zinn writes that living now as we think people should live is itself a hopeful and powerful act. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, as we heard today, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending the spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents, and to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory. Thank you.
It's our custom at the close of academic gatherings such as this to sing the Carleton alma mater together. Today, however, we will listen to the alma mater as sung by members of the Carleton Chamber Choir under the direction of Matthew Olson, and we'll look forward to singing together on a future occasion. Thank you again for being here.